Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and today we are recapping American Crime Season 3, Episode 1. And for those of you that are new to this show, it is an amazing show that doesn't get the acclaim that it truly deserves. And although it has the same cast from season to season, their roles change and their names change, and so each season is like a mini series that covers a different topic. And so season 3 is covering teen sex trafficking and the underground illegal immigrant trade in the USA. So I think this is going to be another awesome series, so let's get started. So the show opens with a call coming into 911, and it's a man that's speaking in a foreign language. And so the scene goes from that to a body underwater, and we don't actually see the whole body. We just see like probably up to here, it's like a hand and then half of an arm. And then we have some people who look like Mexican immigrants. They're probably Mexican or coming from Honduras or somewhere. And they're walking through the desert, and then all of a sudden they cross through a fence, and we realize that they, like I said, they're probably from Mexico, because I'm thinking along the border. Anyway, let's not get off track here. And so the next scene we have, they're in a house and they're being interviewed by a man who is going to help them sell in the U.S. And so they focus on one guy in particular who doesn't speak English. And so when they're asking him, you know, does he have family in the U.S.? Where does he want to go? And so he says he doesn't have family, but he wants to go to North Carolina. And so they're like, okay, we have jobs in Florida, California, and Texas, but the guy is insisting that he wants to go to North Carolina. So the man, you know, who's running the house, he tells him, okay, we can get you to North Carolina, but it's going to cost you. So then we have the guy, and he's on a bus, you know, with the other immigrants, and so they're traveling along the highway when they come upon a scene. And when he looks out the window, it's a body of a dead man, of a man who looks like he could be Hispanic or Latino. And there are two police officers standing over the body. In the next scene, we have a character by the name of Camaro Walters, and she is played by Regina King, who's a regular on the show. And so Regina is trying to get her cable reconnected. It's been disconnected for a month for some reason. And so as the clerk is telling her that, you know, her service has been permanently deactivated, so she has to start over like a new customer, she gets a phone call, and then she goes to meet with a boy named Ishmael, who is a male prostitute. So when she's in the meeting with Ishmael, you know, she lets him know that they don't want to arrest him, but they're looking for his pimp. And so she tries desperately to find him a shelter, but no one has any beds available. And it seems like through the conversations that she's having with people is that they don't really want to deal with him, you know, not him per se, but the fact that he's a male guy that's involved in the sex trade. You know, they're more interested in helping girls and single moms. So one of the shelter owners tells Regina Camara. So one of the shelter owners says that she might have a bed the following day. So if Camara can find him somewhere to stay that night, then maybe she'll have something for them tomorrow. So they go to a diner, and Ishmael, you know, he tells her that he's not a prostitute and he doesn't have a pimp, and that the guy that's helping him is actually his cousin, and his name is Marquise. And so, you know, he says that, you know, he's not pimping me, he's just looking out for me and making sure that I'm taken care of. So Kamara, you know, she pretty much breaks it down for Ishmael, telling him that you're having sex with people for money, that, you know, you give your money to this Marquise guy, he gives you a dump to live in, you know, you have no control, like you can't go to this job and then leave and take your money and do what you want to do. And so Ishmael says, you know, well, what happens if I just get up and walk out? And she lets him know that, you know, she's not going to try and stop him, that he's not under arrest or anything. And so that's what he does. He gets up and he walks out of the diner. So we go off to commercial break, and then when we come back, we have a family. It's the mother and I think her two sons. Yes, the mother and two sons. And they are meeting with a sales rep for a company that buys produce. So we learned that they have a family farm, like a big family farm business, and that the father has become critically ill, and so the mother's trying to take over. But the guy that they're meeting with doesn't seem to have much respect for women, and so even though she's talking to him, when he responds to one of the sons, and I think the son name was Carson. And so he's basically saying that the cost of production is so high that they've got to, cut costs at the picking level. So they need to find, people that are willing to work for a really long time, work long hours, but for lower wages. And so the mom doesn't seem like that's something she wants to do, but I think she understands the whole business aspect of it, and that they're going to have to find out how they can get some cheap labor. The following day, the mother has a meeting with the plant workers, which probably were like supervisor level people and higher. And so she's letting them know that they need workers and that they need them at a very low price, and they must be willing to work, like get huge production in so that they can cut their costs. So then the scene goes to a Hispanic or Latino guy, and he's driving down the street, and he comes across, well, actually, let me back up for a second. So after the mom has the meeting with the guys, then we have like a scene where the supervisors are going out and they're talking to all of these Hispanic or Latino people and letting them know that they are going to, I guess, give them bonuses if they can bring in this cheap labor and find them as many people as they can get. So then we have the scene where we have the Hispanic or Latino guy, and he's driving down the street, and he comes across a young white boy that looked like he could be about 17 or 18 years old. And so he offers him a ride, but then the guy says that, no thanks, that he's, going to walk to wherever he's going. So they get into a conversation through the window, and we find out that the kid is trying to walk to the next city, which is like an hour away. So then the driver of the truck finally convinces him to get in, and he takes him to the store. He tells him he'll get him something to eat and something to drink. Some things he's out there walking in that hot sun that he was going to get him some water, but instead he gets him a 6-pack of beer. So the two of them are talking, and then he tells the guy that he works for this farm and that they're looking for workers to pick tomatoes. So the guy starts laughing, and so the Hispanic guy immediately gets offended, and he's like, "What are you laughing about?" And then he says, "Well, it just seems strange to be offering somebody an opportunity to go pick tomatoes, that's all." And so the guy lets him know, that's what I do for a living. It pays good. I'm a supervisor at this place. And so he's kind of, he says the things that American people would say who have jobs making, for like $40,000, $50,000 a year, but I'm sure he's not making that much. And so to his community, that he probably is like a higher up, or he's someone that's successful and doing a good job. And so he tells the kid, like, you're out here walking in the hot sun trying to get to a city an hour away. You don't even have money to buy yourself something to eat or drink, but you think you're going to score drugs when you get to this other city. And here I am offering you a decent job that's going to pay you some money, and you're laughing at me. So he gives him the rest of the beer and tells him if he changes his mind to give him a call, and he gives him his information, and he gets in the truck and he leaves. So then we move to a store in a mall, there could be like a Macy's or Nordstrom or something. And we have two women at a makeup counter. One is actually doing the makeup and the other is a customer. And so the two of them are talking, and then a guy walks up and he's kind of like, telling the girl to hurry up, come on, what's taking you so long? And so she says, just a few minutes. And when he walks away, the makeup person, asks her if she's okay, is she in any trouble? And so she says, "Oh no, we're going to meet his sister for dinner, and we're going to like this really nice restaurant, so I really want to look perfect for him." And so the lady's like, "Okay, well, if you're sure, but if you need help, let me know." And so the girl insists that everything is okay. So then we have like a scene where she's sitting in a field and she's on her cell phone, and she's like on a maybe Webster or something. And so she's reading out these big words, and she's giving the definitions to whoever she's talking to on the telephone. And then it goes back from her, being in that field to now she's all made up, and she's in the car with the guy who had came to the counter and told her to hurry up. And he takes her to a motel, and so she knocks on the door and she goes inside, and it is a John in the motel room. And so he asks her, why does she have all that makeup on? And so she says, well, your ad said that you wanted makeup. And so he was like, no, no, no. And then he goes into the bathroom and he gets a rag and he comes back out and he tells her to wash the makeup off her face. And so while she's, wiping her face, you can tell that he's getting off on the fact, that now she's transforming, because he kept telling her she looked like she was 30 years old. So I think he was getting off on the fact that as the makeup was coming off, it was revealing how young she really was. And so he was being turned on by that. And then he asked her, how old was she for real? And she said she was 18. And he was like, well, right answer. And so one thing, before all of this happened, when she first came into the room, she called the guy down in the car, to let him know that she was inside and that she had gotten the money from the guy. So after, she finishes up with the John and she's back in the car with the guy, he asked her, why does she look so blown? And then she says that, she's okay. And then he, his speech was kind of, I couldn't tell if he had a speech impediment or if he was saying his words carefully because he wasn't used to speaking English, but she lets him know that, she's okay and not to worry. And so then we go back to Kamara and she is at the doctor's office and the doctor is letting her know that her in vitro fertilization procedure didn't take, and she's explaining to her the different reasons why it didn't work. Then there was a scene earlier with the family who owns the farm and they were at dinner. And so the daughter-in-law, her name is Jeanette, and I think she's also one of the regulars on the show, but in this season, her name is Jeanette. And so she's telling her husband, Carson, that she thinks she's going to go and visit her sister. So now we're at the scene where she goes to visit the sister, and we learn that the sister's husband just up and left, without saying anything. And so she tells her sister that, her husband's father isn't doing well, and that if she wants to, she can come visit them. But the sister says that, she really doesn't want to do that, and that she's doing much better herself, and she's going to try and figure things out with her and the kids and come up with a plan on what to do now that her husband has left. So back at home, Jeanette is telling her husband, what's going on with the sister. And so it turns out the sister is a drug addict, or a recovering drug addict, and that she stole money from his dad when he had given her a job once before. So he doesn't want to let her back in. But he tells Jeanette that if she wants to just write the sister a check and send her some money, he's okay with that. But they're not going to talk to his mom about giving her a job or having her, come back to their house where she can steal from them again. And we go back to the scene with the guy, the immigrant worker who was just coming into the U.S. And so the bus has reached its destination, and it turns out to be, the best way I can describe it is that it's a slave camp, because that's exactly how they were treating these people. And so he's told by the overseer that the owners of the farm pay him directly, and then he gives the workers their share of the money after all of their expenses. And so the guy's like, well, what expenses? And so he says he has to pay the people who gets him the work, and then after he pays them, he pays himself, and then he pays for the place where the guys live at, for their food and for water and everything. And so the immigrant worker, I think he was asking for a check or something, and he told him no, everything was in cash. And so he goes to the trailer where he's going to stay at. I mean, the trailer looked horrible from the outside, but then when he opens the door, it was just so disgusting. It was dirty, it was nasty. And then as they panned around the room, looked like there was like 5 or 6 other guys sleeping in the same like one room trailer with the bathroom exposed. And I was just ashamed to be an American at this place, because it just breaks my heart to know that people are really being treated like this in 2017, that human beings are treating other human beings this way in what is supposed to be one of the most progressive nations in the world. It's just no excuse for it. So when we leave that scene, we end up at a convenience store, and there's a girl sitting outside on the ground, and she has a dog that she's playing with. And so then the girl from earlier in the show and the guy that she was with, who's her pimp, they come out of the store and he spots the girl sitting on the ground. So he sends the other girl over to ask her, you know, if she's okay and would she like to go back to her apartment and crash. And so when she goes over and she's talking to the girl, she tells the girl, you know, hey, I'm just out with my boyfriend right now, but I live with some other females and you're more than welcome to come back, you know, and hang out with us. And so the girl, you know, she pretty much knew what was going on. So she told her, you know, thanks, but no thanks. And so that kind of much ended that scene. And I guess that's how they picked them up. They scour around town looking for runaways and people, you know, who are isolated and are by, you know, and by themselves, and then they lure them in, you know, with food and shelter. So then we have the white guy from earlier in the show, and he's sitting on the side of the road when a truck pulls up, and it turns out to be the Hispanic guy who had given him a ride earlier, and so he gets in and they drive off together. When the girl gets back to the apartment, we find out that she lives with Ishmael from earlier, and so her name is actually Shay, and so the two of them are laying across the bed and they're doing something on her phone. So I'm assuming that it was Ishmael that she was talking to earlier when she had the flashback scene and she was reading, you know, the dictionary. She was reading the words and the definitions from the dictionary off her phone. And so the guy comes in and he tells her that, you know, he needs to take her somewhere. So I think that is Ishmael's cousin, Marquise, who he referred to earlier. And so he takes the girl to a motel, and when they pull up, she tells him that the place looks really familiar. And she seems kind of hesitant about going in, but he tells her to just go inside. So when she gets inside, you know, she calls him and lets him know that she's in. And then he asks her, did she get the money? But from his expression, it doesn't seem like she got the money. And so then this disgusting guy, he was just like, he was sweaty, his hair looked oily and greasy, and he's just like sucking all over her face. And I was just like, oh, I just was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through this season. But he's just like slobbing all over her, and then they fall back on the bed, and then all of a sudden the door is kicked in, and it's the police coming in to make a bust. And so I was just thankful that she was free from that situation, but I'm sure she's had many horrible situations before that. And then the next scene, we have her in the same room that Kamara and Ishmael were in, and this time Kamara is offering her help. And so I think what they're doing is they're highlighting the new California law where they don't arrest, you know, when they do these busts and they take the teen prostitutes in. And I really shouldn't call them prostitute. They're like sex slave workers, because they're really doing this against their will. And so they don't arrest them anymore. They, you know, try to get them help. And if they don't want the help, you know, they let them go. But some people are against it because they say they're legalizing prostitution amongst teens. But what they're really trying to do is get these kids off the street and be able to offer them help without, you know, the fear of them being, you know, caught up in the judicial system. So that was it. The highlights look like it's going to be another great episode. So I hope you guys are here for the ride. And you can leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.